I suffered from treatment-resistant depression and had followed a strict regimen of psychiatric care and numerous medications for 2 years. Nothing helped. I decided to commit suicide. I took a stockpile of pills and alcohol, and called a taxicab to take me to a mountain trailhead. I did not drive my car because I did not want the car to be spotted after dark and cause someone to look for me on the mountain trail. I hiked about 2 miles up the mountain and left the trail to a spot far from where hikers would be. I began dissolving pills under my tongue while drinking vodka. Simultaneously, I phoned my sister from my cell phone to tell her I was hiking and meeting friends and would see her possibly in the next few days. I wanted to establish contact with her so she would have no reason to call or contact me until long after I was dead. I told no one of my intent to commit suicide. The next thing I remember is hearing a loud electronic alarm and a female voice yell, "She's crashing again." I saw a nurse dressed in blue scrubs and a doctor with green scrubs and a white lab coat standing in front of hospital equipment. They had their backs to me. I knew if I looked down, I would see myself, so I did not look down. I was shocked by the tone of voice the nurse used. She sounded angry and I wanted to leave because she was angry with me. Next, I was in a strange, unearthly city. There were 3 young women, about ages 19 to 25, who were very beautiful and glamorous, as I always wished to be. They stayed with me. I did not question their presence, who they were, where they came from, or where I was. We did not speak, although communication was perfectly clear. I was filled with a longing to be beautiful. It was my greatest wish in life because I thought if I were beautiful, I would be loved and wanted. They asked me what I wanted and I told them this. They took me across the city to a white building. We went in, up a long, winding staircase to a large loft full of light. A man came in and waved his hands around me. He made different motions, speaking aloud almost to himself. It was my understanding that he was transforming me into a physically beautiful woman. We left the building and went outside. The light was bright and clear, and there was snow all around, although I was not cold. By this time, I had been with these young women a very long time and done other things I cannot presently remember anymore. I decided I needed to go. I did not know where I was supposed to go to, but I had a very strong feeling I was getting late for something and I had to leave in order to be on time. The 3 women accompanied me to the edge of another city. It was very busy and the buildings were very tall and close together. There were many, many people, all traveling together in small groups, and all looking very happy. They could not seem to see me. They were all coming from the same direction and heading in the same direction. Something caught my eye. It was a young man I noticed by one of the buildings. He caught my attention because he was sitting, and alone, and he looked very unhappy. Of everyone I could see, he was the only person exhibiting these characteristics, and was noticeable as a result. I wanted to look at him and go talk to him, but the leader of the 3 young women told me I should not disturb him. There was a specific reason I was not supposed to disturb him, but I don't remember what it was anymore. I realized he was my stepbrother who had committed suicide a few years prior to my experience. The young women told me that they could not go beyond that point, in the direction I wanted to go. The direction was the opposite of all the people who were walking towards me. I had to go alone. I felt very compelled to go, although nothing told me I should. I knew fundamentally that it was a choice and there were no influencing agents affecting my choice. It was a very strong desire to go, simply put. I did not know where I was going, just that if I would intentionally go, I would get where I needed to be. I left. I was in a wooded area and could see an elevated freeway, but there were no cars on it or other people anywhere around. I knew I needed to follow that freeway to get where I was going. I thought I needed a car so I could get up on that freeway and drive. I asked myself how I was going to get a car. At that time, a man appeared. He was dressed in nondescript, gray clothing, and had no distinguishing features or characteristics to cause me to note his appearance. He told me, without speaking, that I did not need a car. I could get where I was going without a car if I just willed myself there. I did not believe him, and I argued with him, telling him I was lost and was not going to leave until he got a car for me. He said okay. The next thing I knew, I was in a car and driving on this freeway, but the car kept breaking down. I was stalled and alone on this freeway. I got out of the car and wondered how long it would be before someone came along and helped me. At that moment, the man dressed in gray reappeared and told me again that I did not need a car or directions, I needed only my will. Then he left. I had no choice of whether to believe him, so I decided I would use my will. I experienced what felt like a minute or two of flying. The next thing I knew, I woke up in the hospital intensive care unit. I learned the details of my physical condition from my sister after I was released from intensive care. When I was found by my sister, details of how I was discovered will follow later. I was completely unconscious. She found me 18 hours after I ingested the drugs. I was barely breathing and she could only detect a faint, touchy pulse. She was a police officer and trained in CPR and first aid. I stopped breathing multiple times and she administered rescue breathing. I was missing clothing and she suspected I had been attacked and raped because my shirt was on backwards and there was vomit all over the back of my shirt, in my hair, but none on the front. My arms were covered in bruises, scratches and burns, indicating defensive wounds. Paramedics recorded a very low blood pressure. My pulse was very fast and arrhythmic. I did not breathe without the bag over my face. In the hospital, I kept crashing every time they attempted to wake me up. I had a dislocated hip. I had aspirational pneumonia in both lungs. I also had pleural effusions in both lungs, which required surgery, as I was breathing on only 20% of one lung. The pneumonia turned bacterial. I got a fever that could not be reduced, so they put me in an ice bath several times. My kidneys ceased functioning entirely because of something to do with my muscles, lack of oxygen, and an inability of my kidneys to filter all the resulting contaminants in my blood. I was unresponsive to anything and comatose, as it has been described to me. My sister, who was there the entire time, says she was told by the medical team that it was unlikely I would wake up, and if I did, I would most likely be a vegetable because of oxygen deprivation. She was advised not to continue life-saving efforts. She refused the advice and demanded that all measures be taken to save my life. The events below are as described to me by my sister, about 3 weeks after my suicide attempt. 2 men were hiking the day I attempted suicide. They took a dog. Their dog got loose and found me hidden far away from the trail. They robbed me. I had my purse with cash from my last withdrawal. They were going to leave me for dead because they had stolen from me and both were convicted felons. One of them had outstanding warrants for drug charges in several states. The other man recognized me before he left. I used to work a second job as a bartender, and sometime in the previous year, I had served these 2 men. He decided not to leave me until he called. Not wanting attention from the police, he called the last number dialed on my phone, which was my sister. He told her he found me on the trail and I was unconscious. She asked for a location, which he could not pinpoint precisely. She begged him to stay with me until she could get up there. He agreed and stayed with her, giving her directions as she climbed the trail. He left immediately when she found me. At the scene, my sister says she immediately suspected I had been raped. She said it looked staged and that I had obviously been moved, as well as positioned to look a certain way. Her police experience and training caused her to treat the scene as a crime scene at first. She and her husband called 911. During my hospitalization, the man who called her called the intensive care unit several times to ask for my sister and inquire to whether I died. She said he wanted to know because they had assaulted me, and it could affect what crimes they could be charged with. The police assigned a detective to my case and the first man fled town. I decided not press charges against the second man, as I remember absolutely nothing whatsoever from the moment I spoke with my sister until the time I awoke in the hospital. The paramedics could not get up the trail with a stretcher to where I was at, so my sister and her husband carried me down to a point where help was waiting for them. During that time, she had to stop repeatedly and administer rescue breathing.